All right, boys. Better MMA is back. We are giving you picks and predictions for Corey Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Starting off with the main event, Corey Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Corey Sandhagen, I think, has an overall better skill set, given the fact that he has some better boxing than Umar Nurmagomedov. But I think Umar is going to be a very good kicker in this fight, and I think he's going to out-grapple Corey Sandhagen for at least a majority of the rounds, if not being able to find a submission in the later rounds. So even though Corey Sandhagen could outbox Umar Nurmagomedov here, I think Umar is going to do a good job of staying out at kicking range, and then once he closes the distance, he will shoot into the takedowns, and he will not be getting caught in the boxing range of Corey Sandhagen. So I'm going to go with Umar Nurmagomedov by a 5-round decision or a 3rd or 4th round submission. Moving on to the co-main event of Shara Bullet Magomedov versus Mikhail Olegchaychuk. Now, Mikhail Olegchaychuk is a decent fighter. He really goes for it, but he has been broken many times in the UFC. He is a breakable fighter in the clinch when it comes to knees and elbows. He has a size disadvantage in this fight, and I think that will work against him in the clinch situations. And I think Shara Bullet should be able to pick Mikhail apart at range with his kicks. I could see him rocking Mikhail with a head kick or something to that effect, and then Shara Bullet being able to finish this perhaps with a TKO on the ground or simply winning a 3-round decision. Moving on to Marlon Chito Vera versus Deiveson Figueiredo. For those that are picking Marlon Vera in this fight, you're going to have to pick him via some sort of head kick knockout or some sort of flash KO, because Marlon Vera, as we know, is a very slow starter, so most likely he will lose the first round of this fight. Deiveson Figueiredo, I also think, has an extremely underrated wrestling game at the bantamweight division, as we've seen in his Rob Font fight and displayed in his last fight against Cody Garbrandt. He is very good at securing the takedown and securing the body triangle. I think this grappling style from Deiveson Figueiredo has surprised a few people at bantamweight already, and I see Marlon Vera walking into Deiveson Figueiredo very similarly to how Rob Font did, and this will make it easy for Deiveson Figueiredo to shoot his takedown entries and be able to secure this decision here, if not getting a late 3rd round submission. Moving on to Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa is the least dangerous opponent that Tony Ferguson has fought in his last 7 fights. I'm going to have to pick Tony Ferguson here. Michael Chiesa has 1 foot outside of the octagon, doing his commentary job, looking to start a podcast and then failing it. He's looking at all of these different avenues outside of fighting to make money. Tony Ferguson, on the other hand, though he is on a very long losing streak, at least we know he is still dedicated to the fight game. And as we know, Tony Ferguson is still a talented submission specialist, and he does still have power on the feet. Michael Chiesa has a very good chance of out-grappling Tony Ferguson for 3 rounds, or perhaps getting an arm triangle or something to that effect in the late 3rd round. But I'm going to have to pick Tony Ferguson by a 1st round submission. Moving on to Mackenzie Dern versus Lupi Godinez. I don't really care for WMMA, so I'll skip over this one real quick. I'm going to go with Mackenzie Dern. Lupi Godinez, though she is a good wrestler and she does have some good hands on the feet, as long as this fight is at least taken to the ground at one point in time or another, I could see Mackenzie Dern getting the submission. Lupi Godinez, though she is a better striker, it's not like this is men's MMA where having strong boxing is really going to affect your opponent much. So I'm going to go with Mackenzie Dern getting a fluke submission, probably in the 2nd round. Moving on to the prelim headliner, Azamat Murzakanov versus Alonzo Menafield. I'm going to have to pick Azamat Murzakanov here, simply off the fact that Alonzo Menafield, he is not reliable when it comes to his decision-making in fights, and I also think that Azamat Murzakanov is a very strong, fast striker, though he is undersized in this matchup, and he has also popped for steroids in the past, so I think he's on those good Russian steroids. I think he'll be able to shock KO Alonzo Menafield, probably in the 1st or 2nd round, with something like a flying knee or just a very big, strong punch on the feet. Azamat Murzakanov will keep his undefeated streak going and move on to 14-0. Moving on to Muhammad Yahya versus Caio Fernandez. You gotta fade Muhammad Yahya. Muhammad Yahya looked pathetic against Trevor Peek, and Trevor Peek is one of the least technical fighters in the entire lightweight division. Caio Fernandez has good wins in LFA on the regional scene, so you're gonna have to go with Caio Fernandez simply based off the fact that he's shown a higher level of competition. Moving on to Shamil Ghaziev versus Dontel Maye. Shamil Ghaziev, coming off of his first loss in his professional career against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, being that he is from this area, he's looking to really get a hometown win here. I think Shamil Ghaziev, coming back from a devastating loss, he's got some good momentum behind him coming into a home turf territory. So Dontel Maye is going to receive a loss here, though Dontel Maye shows up in certain fights. I don't think he necessarily possesses a skill set that justifies him outworking Shamil Ghaziev, whether it's on the feet or on the ground. Dontel does have a good jab, to be fair to him, but I'm going to say Ghaziev takes this fight to the ground and gets aggressive with Dontel Maye on the feet. So I'm going to take Shamil Ghaziev either by a 3-round decision or a first-round KO. Moving on to Guram Cutelaba versus Jordan Vucenic. There's a part of me that really wants to pick Jordan Vucenic in this fight because Guram Cutelaba does have a pretty tough weight cut, and Jordan Vucenic should be stronger over the 3 rounds, given that he is not cutting weight to 155. He is a natural 145 pounder, but I think from a pure skill level, Guram Cutelaba, coming from a kickboxing background, he should be able to tee off on Jordan Vucenic on the feet. And Jordan Vucenic, though he does have a good grappling game, I'm not expecting him to really have a heavy wrestling game plan going into this fight, where I see him more so looking to get a takedown, and then when he tries submissions, Guram Cutelaba will be able to defend them. So I'm going to go Guram Cutelaba via winning a 3-round decision. Moving on to Jai Herbert versus Rolando Bedya. Now, Rolando Bedya is going to be my lock of the week here, guys. He is nearly 10 years younger than Jai Herbert, and I know what you're saying. Jai Herbert has fought better competition. He has a good record, even though he has a lot of losses in the UFC. He's fought high-level guys. Jai Herbert fights a lot like Leon Edwards. He likes to use his length with his punches. He's not the most aggressive, even when he gets you hurt, and he's looking to work his kicks at range. Rolando Bedya will treat Jai Herbert like Belal Muhammad treated Leon Edwards. Now, he may not wrestle like Belal, but he will cut out that kicking range. He will stay in Jai Herbert's face, and Rolando Bedya is a high-volume kickboxer. He really loves to get in your face and throw the hands. He is a high-volume guy, even in his 2 losses in the UFC, which were both at 170. Rolando Bedya now cutting down to 155. He looks in much better shape. I think Rolando Bedya is either going to get a dominant decision win or a KO TKO, and he's going to send Jai Herbert into retirement. And the card opens up with Cedricus Dumas versus Denis Tululin. Now, Denis Tululin's record, 10-9, looks very bad to the eye. And if he loses this fight, I have no doubts in my mind that he will get cut from the UFC. But Denis Tululin is a very game fighter. He always brings the fight. He's got some decently heavy hands, and he is a decent grappler. Unfortunately, he's just not good enough anywhere to really impose himself at his age, and he is starting to lose his durability. So as long as Cedricus Dumas doesn't make any massive mistakes, he should be able to get a dominant decision or finish Denis Tululin within the 3 rounds, most likely by a 1st or 2nd round submission. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Please be sure to like and comment on the video. Better MMA, you know what we do. We out. Peace.